He was kind of a proto-engineer even as a boy, and then of course he got his pilot's license to fly when he was 16, on his 16th birthday. He hadn't even started to drive or even try to drive an automobile. He was already flying airplanes. My name is James Hansen. I'm the author of the book First Man, The Life of Neil A. Armstrong. I think one thing that I tried to do in the book, and the movie certainly tries to do, is sort of demythologize the American astronaut. I think we have this impression of them from previous treatments of astronaut stories that somehow they're these steely-eyed missile men, they're almost godlike, they don't fear death. I mean, I think that's mostly mythology.
Do you question whether the program's worth the cost? In money and in lives?
The movie covers the years 1961 up through the moon landing in 1969, so it's just 8 years of his life. As a biographer, of course, I wrote about his entire life.
We need to fail. We need to fail down here so we don't fail up there.
There was nothing in Neil's personality that really tried to find the limelight. It was never about fame or fortune for him. It was about the flying. The most important thing to him about Apollo 11 was, you know, let's fly this lander down to a successful landing, you know, and not kill ourselves. And the act of stepping out onto the lunar surface was, for him, almost an afterthought and very secondary. It was his job as commander to fly the lunar module down to a landing, and so that was really what it was about. I think there were several facets of his background and experience and his talents that made him really an outstanding astronaut and commander of both the Gemini and the Apollo flights. He was very, very smart. He was an unbelievably focused guy, and that worked out well in his professional life because you really had to be focused on the mission and what you needed to do. It maybe wasn't so good for him in a personal sense because his focus could within the family setting, for example, a focus on the job and on the profession might mean that he's not so focused on the social relationships inside of the family, with his marriage, the relationship with his boys.
What are the chances you're not coming back?
4.
Those kids, they don't have a father anymore.
3.
So you're gonna sit the boys down?
2.
And you're gonna prepare them for the fact you might not ever come home.
In the movie, we show a really close friendship between Neil and Ed White and Neil and Elliot See. Elliot See's not a terribly well-known astronaut, but he was part of the second group, and we don't know him so well historically because he was killed in a plane crash. But Neil and him were very, very close, and the death of Elliot See was just. And then Ed White, of course, this other really close friend, dies in the Apollo fire. So Neil felt a lot of these losses in a very personal way because he had become close friends with these men. Well, one of the things that I really wanted to look into as his biographer was the death of his baby daughter girl, 2.5 years old, Karen Armstrong, and she died of a brain tumor in early 1962. And I knew it was going to be a very private subject because there were people that knew Neil well, you know, in the succeeding years that didn't even know that Neil had a daughter because he never talked about it. As my interviews with his wife, Janet Armstrong, I discovered he didn't talk about it with her either, which, you know, is a lot of marriages don't survive the death of a child. It's just such a traumatic and horrible experience, and it just, you know, challenges everything about a relationship. Neil, in its classic way of talking about things or avoiding talking too much about things, when I asked him about the effects of the death on him and his career, and this is a line we built directly into the movie, he answered me, well, I think it would be unreasonable to assume that it would have no effect.
Neil, if his flight is successful, you'll go down in history. What kind of thoughts do you have about that?
We're planning on the flight being successful.
And the movie explores that, picks up where I left off and kind of explores that even in more detail. So the idea of him leaving something for his daughter is something I discuss in my book. The film suggests that this, you know, could very well have happened. And I guess I just leave it with the following thought, that there are times when the power of poetry prevails over the uncertainty of fact. To think that they're not affected by it in any way whatsoever, I think is just the wrong way to look at it. And I think my book and the movie shows a more subtle and nuanced psychology of astronauts and what we might get from what we've had from the previous mythology of the astronaut.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.